Welcome everyone to stage 1. So quick housekeeping rules before we get started. Please ensure your devices, including mobile phones, are silenced. All the talking today will be recorded as well as live streamed. It will be available after the sessions. And please ensure that you've downloaded the Events app so you have access to all of the agenda as well as providing feedback after the session. So, welcome to the session on simplifying builder experience with Amazon SageMaker Unified Studio. It's my pleasure to welcome to the stage Kaushik Chatterjee.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining me in this session. I hope you're having a great summit so far. Now, imagine if you have a single unified interface where your data engineers, data analysts, and machine learning practitioners can all collaborate seamlessly, and the traditional boundaries that we see between analytics and AI are dissolved to form a cohesive experience. I'm excited to share the next generation of Amazon SageMaker that simplifies this experience and accelerates your journey from data to insights to action. I'm Kaushik Chatterjee, Analytics Specialist at Amazon. In the next 30 minutes, I'll cover the next generation of SageMaker, talk to you about what its capabilities are, and then we'll spend most of the time on the demo. So we'll see this live in action. Can I get a show of hands? How many of you agree with this statement? Great. So over years, we've been working with countless customers in their transformation journey. And if there's one thing that's been key in this, it's been data. Every business at its core is a data business. Now, organizations understand that data is the key differentiator, and it's necessary to unlock analytics and AI that is tailored to their business. But what are the problems that they're facing? Now, today, the technology landscape is ever evolving, and that brings an evolving landscape of tools. You have data sitting in silos, and that causes fragmented governance. Right? And so you end up duplicating your governance across these systems. And with a variety of tools, giving access to your developers and machine learning engineers is always a challenge. Now, organizations who have been using AWS tell us that they like the comprehensive set of purpose-built services because that allows them to optimize the cost profile of their workload. But to get the best out of this, what they want is a unified experience on all of the services. And that brings us to the next generation of Amazon SageMaker. So you might be familiar with Amazon SageMaker, which is a comprehensive toolkit for building machine learning and AI applications. We have added 3 new capabilities to that. The first one, the Lakehouse. You may have data on S3 data lakes or model data sitting in Redshift, which is our data warehouse, or data sitting in Amazon S3 tables, the purpose-built structures for tabular data in Iceberg format. Now imagine all of this data set is available to you centrally in a Lakehouse catalog, and you can access this data over open Iceberg REST-compatible APIs. And on top of that, you can apply fine-grained access controls which get enforced across analytical engines. So what does that give you? It now sets you up to build an open and extensible data ecosystem because since the catalog is accessible through Iceberg APIs, you now can use analytics engines available on AWS, but also third-party applications which can read Iceberg. Example, any Spark engine. The next is a business enterprise catalog which has business metadata, data quality, lineage, and inbuilt workflows that sets you up for governance and permission controls across producers and subscribers. And on top of this is the unified development environment, which is SageMaker Unified Studio, which gives you access to all the tools that you need to build analytics, machine learning, and GenAI applications. So that is the next generation of Amazon SageMaker. And this is available to you as an off-console experience, directly integrated with your identity provider. So if you look at the interface, when you log into SageMaker Unified Studio, you have all the tools to discover, build, and govern your data and build analytics and AI applications. So you have notebooks, visual ETL tools, you have your machine learning models, and you have access to foundational models available within Bedrock. There's a query editor which now lets you access your query engines like both Athena and Redshift. Now, people here who have been using AWS Analytics Services, you might be familiar that if you were to use Athena, you have to go to the Athena UI. If you were to use Redshift, you have to go to the Redshift Studio, right? Now, this is all brought into a single interface where from one editor, you have access to all the compute engines. We have the Studio notebooks. Again, from here, you can pick the compute engine of your choice. This is integrated with Git, and it allows you to use GenAI to do assisted development, and we'll see that example in the demos. You have your SageMaker machine learning and AI models available within this interface, and your Bedrock foundational models are all available within this single interface. Amazon Q is integrated with this, and you can use Q to start searching or do data discovery using natural language. You can use Q to do text to SQL, specify something in natural language and get an SQL query back. You can use Q for assisted development, ask Q to debug an error, ask Q to explain a code snippet for you. So this is embedded into the experience to accelerate the productivity for builders. Now, let's start by understanding what does the setup look like. So this is a toolkit, but how do you start setting this up? Now, a key construct to think about this is what's called as a project. Think of a project as a logical boundary, which has data, tools, and you add users to projects. Now, the thing is, when you add users to projects, all the users within a project have the same access to the tools and data that belong to that project. So you don't have to now individually assign permissions to every user to their data set or to the tool. You start by building a project, you assign data sets and tools to a project, and you bring users to that. So it's a logical construct, but it contains the permission boundaries within a project. And you go on creating projects for, let's say, use cases that you build. And that's one mental model that you start thinking about in this next generation of SageMaker. Now, I spoke about what all the components are, but let's see this in action. And what we'll do is, let's take a use case. And again, the key thing is collaboration between personas, right? How can a data engineer collaborate with a machine learning engineer? And so let's take this use case where a company wants to launch a campaign for their high propensity products. And they want to start by finding out first that what are my high propensity products, and then build a propensity model and then launch a campaign. So the key for choosing such type of a scenario is to show you how a data engineer and a machine learning engineer or a data scientist can collaborate together in this experience. So here are the personas. So Samantha is the executive who wants to build this use case, but then The builder personas are Alice, the data engineer, and Bob, the data scientist, who are going to work on this. So what does building this use case actually entail? So Alice, the data engineer, will start by discovering the data. And that has always been a challenge. You are given a use case and you wonder, where do I find the data? Is it sitting on S3? Is it sitting in my data warehouse? Who should I reach out to where the data is? So it's discover the data, prepare the data, which is where you will build your ETL applications. And then how do you then share this prepared data with your data scientist, right? And that's where you publish data products. And then the machine learning engineer will access this data product, build the machine learning model, and then generate assets for campaigns. And I'm sure some of these challenges will resonate with you, because traditionally, whenever we talk about building use cases, it starts with, how do I find data? How do I get access to the data? Do I contact my platform team? Where are the tool sets? Do I have the right tool sets? And then how do I talk with my colleague and work together on this use case, which is the collaboration. So let's see how this experience looks like on next generation of Amazon SageMaker. So let's start by data discovery. We'll see how using natural language we can discover the data, how we can explore business metadata, how we can specify in natural language what we want to do, and then that gets converted into query. And then, like I said, everything's unified, so you can choose the query engine of your choice, be it Athena or Redshift. So Alice is logged into Amazon SageMaker Unified Studio, and she starts off by specifying that, hey, where is my sales data? Now, the data sets are cataloged within the business catalog in SageMaker, and that powers this search. And so she gets back a result of all the sales data. Now she can look at the business metadata to understand, what does this data set contain? Is it the right data set? And then go on to understand, what is the schema? What are the columns? Description of all columns. And these are all generated using Amazon Q. She can look at the data quality to understand, does she trust this data? What are the quality rules that have been applied? And then look at the lineage, that how did this data set, what's the lineage of this data set? Now, once she has done this discovery, and this is within the SageMaker business catalog, Alice can go and say, let me start querying the data to understand what does the data look like. So she can log into the query editor. We're calling this query books now, and then pick up Athena and query the table directly from this editor. Now, again, using Amazon Q, Alice can now specify what she wants using natural language. So find me data for the year 2024 as an example. And Amazon Q will convert this into a SQL query, which with a single click gets added into a cell in the query book, and she can execute this query. As you see, 2024 is interpreted with the right, from, and to dates over here. So she executes this query, looks at the data set, and now from this same query editor, you have all your data sets within Glue and Redshift available in the Lakehouse catalog, and she can easily go and query another table that's sitting in Redshift, which is the data warehouse. So once this is done, and again, like you see, you can pick and choose the engines of your choice from here. So the data discovery step is done, and let's see how we can prepare data, which is do some ETLs to generate a data set which the data scientist can use. Here again, we'll start first by using the notebook experience. And I'm sure if you're engineers, builders here, you are familiar with the notebook interface. So we'll see how notebooks within SageMaker, you can pick the engine of your choice. Where do you want to run Spark? Do you want to run Python? How you can use Amazon Q for assisted development. And then this is integrated with Git. So Alice logs into the notebook. So you go to the build menu. From there, you can grab the notebook. And if you can see, you can pick the type of compute that you want. Local Python, Spark. If you want to run Spark, you can choose whether you want to run it on EMR or on Glue. So the key point here is you still have the choice of compute engines, and you can still choose where you want to run your workload, but you access all of this through a unified interface. So from the notebook, you can query both Glue and Redshift using Spark. And this is, again, happening because everything's available centrally within one catalog over Iceberg APIs. Now, once you query Redshift, this is where you can use Amazon Q, where you click on a cell, go to the generative AI menu, and ask Q to either explain the code, refactor the code, or if there was an error in the cell, you can ask Q to debug the error for you. And as you see, Amazon Q here goes on explaining what that code does. So this boosts your productivity, gives you the assisted development that we're talking about. And as a last step here, what Alice is doing is preparing a data set which the data scientists will use to build a model. Now, there is another way of doing ETL in SageMaker, and what we call that visual ETL. Now, as an example, let's say you want to build a Spark code, but you don't want to start off by writing Spark. So we offer a visual ETL for Spark, where, again, you can start off by specifying in natural language what you want to build as an ETL, and it just populates the nodes for you, and then you go and click and edit and make changes to each node. And that's embedded with Airflow, which is another experience available within this SageMaker Unified Studio. So let's see how does this look like. So you again go from the build menu and click on Visual ETL. Now you can start off by specifying what you want in natural language. So for example, build an ETL by joining two data sets and populating another table. Now, this typically I recommend you use as a starting point, because what this does is it will populate the ETL flow with all the nodes, but then you would have to go and make some changes. Like it's still not there yet where it can exactly understand this is the table from Glue catalog, blah, blah. So you go and start making changes. But the interesting thing here is the data preview option. If you see what's happening is, this is your ETL code, and every step has a preview option. So that lets you preview and interactively build your ETL code. So you get to verify every step that whatever you have specified, what's the output of that. So you don't need to build your whole ETL job and test, only then realize that, hey, this was a transformation that I did incorrectly. Here you can click on each node, get the preview button, a Spark code gets generated behind the scenes, and you can specify what type of compute you want. And you can grab that ETL flow and schedule it in Apache Airflow, which is available again as an integrated experience from Amazon SageMaker. So we saw the data preparation step. Now the question comes that Alice, the data engineer, has prepared the data sets. How does she publish this into a catalog so that other builders in the organization, or in our case, Bob, can discover that data set, right? So we'll see this step of how, as a builder, you can publish something into your business catalog, add metadata, because remember in the first step you saw that you started with that discovery, that find me sales data, that operates on the business metadata. And then how you can create data products and publish them to make it discoverable. So from SageMaker, Alice will start by first looking at the table that she created as part of the data preparation step. And again, she's using Athena to quickly query that table. And then is the step of how can you make this table or data asset available to other builders or other personas within your organization. So the step to do that is to go to your SageMaker catalog and say publish data source. What this is doing is it's importing the table, which is a technical construct, and publishing this into your business catalog. So this job can be scheduled or you can run based on an event. And once you do that, this gets available within SageMaker catalog. Now here again, you can use Q to ask it to generate the business metadata for you automatically. So as data stewards, you don't need to go and manually write business metadata. You can ask Q to generate for you, and then you can either accept, reject, edit it. So this will go and generate metadata for the table and the columns. Alice accepts all the changes generated and goes ahead and publishes this asset. And after that, what she'll go and do is she can go and create a data product. Now, data product is something, again, where you can add tables. So you can think of, I'm building a data product for sales and product campaigns, and that can have multiple tables. So from the same interface, Alice can go and create a data product. She's adding 2 tables, which Bob will use eventually for building the machine learning model. Now, once these tables are published, or once this data product is published, Alice has finished the part of discovery data preparation. So let's see the progress till now. Alice has done the data discovery, prepared the data, and published the data product. And this is one key feature that's available within SageMaker, which is the governance. Now, how does Bob, as a data scientist, subscribe to this? And it's not just directly subscribing, but Alice is the data owner for that data set. So Alice should have the authority to either approve or reject Bob's request to access that data set. And then finally, based on that approval or rejection, how can Bob then access the data? So this workflow that allows you to publish and subscribe data sets is all built in. And very importantly, all these events are logged. So from an audit and compliance point of view, you can go back and check everything that's happened within SageMaker. Who has published, who has subscribed, when was this done? So it's all available for you for audit and compliance. So Bob has now logged in. Bob has his own project for machine learning. And Bob goes and starts by browsing the available data products in the catalog. So he finds a data product that's available, looks at what are the assets in this data product, and then Bob will go and click on subscribe. What's happening behind the scenes is when Bob subscribes to this data product, a request now goes to the owner of this data product, right? And so Alice, once Alice logs in, Alice will see that there are incoming requests from other projects, from other accounts, from other personas. And Alice can now review these requests and choose whether to approve or reject. So she gets all the details of who has subscribed, what's the project that's subscribing to this data product. And then once Alice approves, behind the scenes, all the necessary permissions are triggered. So back in the day, as a platform or a cloud engineer, you would have to do this yourself through IAM, etc. And now Bob has access to the machine learning models. So now Bob will go ahead and start building the propensity model. And again, Bob will use the notebook interface. Now here, one of the other cool features within the notebook is the polyglot experience. What does that mean? So here, in the first cell, you are using Athena as a query engine to run a query on the data set. Now what you can do is grab the result of that and convert it directly into a pandas data frame in the next cell. So you have that ability from going from one cell to another and grabbing the results or the output of one cell and using it directly in the other. You don't have to generate separate notebooks for this. So Bob goes and finds out what are my top products, and then what he'll end up doing is generating a prompt with which he will generate some content for marketing. So this is a classic machine learning experience where you have your notebooks, you have all the machine learning models available. And so once Bob has built the propensity model, the last step is generating some assets for campaign. And what better way to do it than using GenAI? So remember, the next generation of SageMaker has the Bedrock experience also integrated in it. So from the same studio now, you can go to the generative AI menu, look at, grab the prompt. Sorry. Yeah. Grab the prompt and generate some content. Now this will be the content that will be used for marketing. And then over here, you have access to all large language models. So as an example, you can switch from chat to image and use the Nova Canvas model to generate some images for your marketing. So Bob switches over to Nova Canvas model, grabs a prompt that's already created, and puts this prompt in. So again, the key thing is no more going into individual studios for every service to get a use case done. All of this is available within the same integrated, unified experience. So Bob now grabs a few of the images that Nova has generated, and then you had the marketing content and the image, and with both of this, Bob basically builds a microsite. So again, just to recap, we started off with the data discovery, saw two ways of doing ETL, notebook, visual ETL using Spark, publishing data products into your business catalog so that it's discoverable to other builders in your organization, and then how builders can access data products, build machine learning models, and then use GenAI. So the key here is how can we make this experience seamless? The collaboration is now faster, no more running around for access, finding the data, and then you therefore can focus on the use case. Key takeaways: unified studio notebooks for data processing, query editors for SQL analytics, machine learning development experience, the GenAI experience using Bedrock, and then the Amazon Q integration that is embedded throughout this experience. That's all I had to cover. Thank you so much, and I hope you build your next use case on next generation Amazon SageMaker. Thank you.